Do you think you could escape from prison? What if we told you someone did it not once, not twice, but 4 times? You might say that person was a superhero or a fictional character, but we're talking about an ordinary man who became famous for his persistence and ingenuity. And although some of his escapes were aided by accomplices, there were also instances where he single-handedly outsmarted the guards. So how did this man become infamous? What were his motivations and what happened after his 4th escape? Let's find out. This is the incredible true story of Yoshie Shiratori, the man who couldn't be imprisoned. Yoshie Shiratori was born in Japan in 1907, but his early life wasn't easy. He had a dysfunctional family with an alcoholic father, and his parents divorced when he was only 3 years old. He was raised by his maternal grandparents and later attended an engineering school in Tokyo. Graduating in 1926, after studying mechanical engineering, he got a job at a shipyard and married a young woman named Kimiko. However, the couple's happiness was short-lived. In 1930, something terrible happened. On December 11th, Shiratori returned home to find his wife dead and their house robbed. Although Shiratori claimed he found his wife dead when he arrived home, the police suspected foul play. At first, they didn't have enough evidence to arrest him, but they kept him under surveillance. Several people witnessed Shiratori carrying a suitcase out of his house around the time of the murder. Moreover, the police found traces of blood in the suitcase. Although he denied the accusations, Shiratori was arrested and charged with murdering his wife to collect insurance money. There was also speculation that he killed his wife because she was pregnant with another man's child. While the actual motive remained unclear, one thing was evident: Shiratori was innocent. He always maintained his innocence, claiming he discovered his wife's lifeless body after returning home from work. After a brief investigation, Shiratori was given a life sentence without parole. But how did it come to this? Without any evidence connecting Shiratori to the crime, the police tortured him until he confessed. Even though Shiratori repeatedly insisted he was innocent, the authorities ignored him. They charged him with killing his wife and stealing 500 yen, which is equivalent to about 4,000 yen today. They also alleged that he tried to collect life insurance for his wife, although he had no such policy. Furthermore, the prosecution claimed that he murdered his wife in cold blood. Ultimately, Shiratori was convicted based on his confession. However, he continued to maintain his innocence throughout his imprisonment. When Shiratori entered prison, he vowed to prove his innocence. In fact, he wanted to make such a big statement that he refused to cooperate with the prison administration. For example, he never revealed his shoe size, so the prison staff had to force him to take off his shoes. They then measured his feet without giving him new footwear. Not surprisingly, he felt humiliated and resentful towards the prison system. As a result, he decided to escape. But how could a prisoner escape from jail? If you've seen movies like The Shawshank Redemption, you know it takes a lot of planning and cooperation. It's not like you can just walk through the front door, but Shiratori was determined. He meticulously planned his escape and waited for the perfect moment. Finally, on January 23, 1932, he made a hole in the wall using a metal file and successfully escaped. Once outside, he walked calmly past the prison gate, picked up a newspaper, and started reading it. When asked by a guard why he was still outside, Shiratori replied, "I'm late for work," and just like that, he vanished into the crowd. As you can imagine, the prison authorities were furious. They launched a massive manhunt, but Shiratori was nowhere to be found. Even more surprising was that the police didn't apprehend him immediately. After all, how does one simply escape from prison? Maybe the authorities thought he was too dumb to get far. However, they were wrong. Shiratori managed to evade them for 2 years, proving that he was more intelligent than they anticipated. But eventually, on February 12, 1934, he was recaptured while trying to board a ship to Shanghai. He was only 27 years old at the time. You'd think Shiratori would give up after his first escape attempt, but it just made him more determined. He devised another plan, and on March 10, 1936, he escaped again. This time, he dug a tunnel using a small pickaxe, which he sharpened with a handkerchief to make it sharper. He created a hole the size of a football, then he squeezed through and fled. Once again, he was gone before anyone realized what had happened. Just like the first time, the police failed to catch him. He even managed to avoid detection for 3 years. But eventually, on March 28, 1939, he was captured after trying to enter China via the Korean peninsula. Shiratori was sent back to Japan and transferred to the more secure Tokyo District Prison. This time, the prison authorities took extra precautions to ensure he wouldn't escape again. But little did they know, Shiratori had already made plans. In 1940, he escaped from prison yet again. This time, he had help from his friend, Hiroshi Ueda. Together, they concocted a daring plan. Ueda provided Shiratori with false documents and forged fingerprints. The plan was that Ueda would submit the fingerprints to the police station as part of an unrelated case. Meanwhile, Shiratori would escape from prison and use the false documents to evade the authorities. Everything went according to plan. Shiratori used a homemade gun to intimidate the guards and escaped. But once again, the police couldn't find him. This time, however, Shiratori stayed in Japan and changed his name to Saburo Katayama. With the help of sympathetic accomplices, he managed to stay one step ahead of the police. Interestingly, during the war, he served in the Japanese Navy, rising to the rank of Chief Petty Officer. Many believe he provided valuable engineering skills to the Navy, but it's also speculated that he spied on the Chinese and became an informant. Some reports suggest that he even received special treatment from the Navy because of his fame. While details are scarce, one thing is clear: he lived a double life, working for the Navy during the day and secretly meeting his wife at night. Shiratori's life of crime finally came to an end in 1945. That year, American forces invaded Japan. He was captured and sentenced to 5 years of hard labor. However, the war ended soon after, and Shiratori was released from custody. Amazingly, despite his reputation as a criminal mastermind, he gained public sympathy. People admired his intelligence and relentless pursuit of freedom. In fact, many saw him as a symbol of hope during difficult times. As a result, he became quite famous in Japan. Shiratori's celebrity status can be compared to that of Willie Sutton, the infamous bank robber who enjoyed similar fame among Americans. During his lifetime, Shiratori published several books and articles sharing his experiences and insights. One of his most famous works, Escape from Prison, became an instant hit upon release. Additionally, a series of books based on his life titled Mr. Perfect have also gained popularity. His life story has been adapted into several films, including Escape from Tokyo. Director Kinji Fukasaku portrayed Shiratori as a flawed hero who becomes a gangster. But how did Shiratori spend his remaining years? Well, after being released from prison, he married one of his biggest fans, Tammy Asano. Tammy, a widow with 2 children, was captivated by Shiratori's adventurous life. The couple had a son together and ultimately had 3 children, 2 daughters and a son. Shiratori worked as a carpenter for some time, but he left the workforce in 1949. He spent his days at home writing columns for various magazines and his evenings playing poker with friends. However, he never discussed his previous life as a prisoner, not even with his own family. Although Shiratori initially gained public support, he faced challenges due to his criminal record. He had difficulty finding work and had to switch jobs frequently. But people still recognized him as the brilliant escape artist and criminal. Throughout his adult life, he struggled to distance himself from his former reputation. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1967 at the age of 60, but his legacy continues to live on through the numerous books and movies based on his life. So what do you think about Yoshie Shiratori's amazing escapes? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, before you go, don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on fascinating topics. Thanks for watching and see you next time.